Call the meeting to order. It's April 18th, 2023, the regular city council meeting, West Liberty, Iowa. Mayor Ethan Anderson, and we have tonight for a roll call, Mayor Pro Tem Cara McFerren and city council members Ashley Smith, Josh Schiltz, and Omar Martinez. Council member Dana Dominguez can't join us tonight, at least not yet. How's everybody doing tonight? Great. Good. Here?
I'm here.
Since you're here. We'll start with item 2, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 4-0. Approval of the consent agenda, which includes the city council meeting minutes from our last meeting, your last meeting, in January 2023 clerk treasurer report and the sewer report. Trust everybody got a chance to review that. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Beer and liquor license, Muscatine County Fair, requesting 2 approvals here. The first one is a special class C retail alcohol license with Sunday sale for 12 months. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve this liquor license request.
Has there been any issues?
Chief
Hi,
Whirling
Mayor.
is on Zoom, I believe. Chief Whirling, are you hearing us? Can you address council member's question?
I have no issues that I know of and nothing that has been reported in the past.
Thank you. So this is for the Midway Pavilion and then followed by the Grandstand Amphitheater. I'm not sure exactly why they're separate, but apparently they're separate organizations. And so on.
Yeah, they're always two separate because they have to have it for the actual vicinity itself. So you have what is known as the beer tent, that midday pavilion, and then you have the Grandstand Theater to be able to have that as well.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 4-0. We'll move on to 4B. It's same thing, the liquor license request for the Grandstand Amphitheater at the Muscatine County Fair. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Which one? McFerren?
Moving to second to approve. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 4-0. We have reports starting with 5K, the city engineer, Mr. Foley.
Okay, last time I was here, I talked about the wastewater treatment plant. So we have now looked over your permit and we'll probably have a contract for the next meeting. And basically that contract is for you guys. We won't, it costs you money, but we won't. And we're telling you when you have to take certain samples to meet the guidelines. And for 3 months, you have to do certain sampling to meet what their permit says. And then after that, we'll take that and we'll review it for you and all that. So that's really all I had on the wastewater treatment plant. We've got well information. I think we can talk about that when we get to the public hearings. And then Maxim and Rainbow, there's a change order on there for that. So I think we can go through that at that time.
Okay.
All I had tonight.
Great. I trust everybody got a chance to review the city staff reports. Are there questions from council for supervisors or city staff?
I just wanted to make one comment that I'm going to pick up the bottles tomorrow, at the state hygienic lab for the first round of sampling for this new permit.
Thank you, Craig.
Okay. City Manager Geertz, you want to have anything to share about your report?
Just, unless you have any questions, I mean, in addition to what I have there, we just quickly, Shari and I did get in touch with, for codification. So we followed up, we followed up on codification, we had a meeting. We identified that we have two separate projects. The larger piece of recodification, we requested a timeline that we can work from and provide you, so we'll have that to you at the first meeting of May. The other project is taking everything that's been passed and making sure that it's up to date and that it's being placed online. There was a misunderstanding or breakdown in communication, and so that was our meeting and we got that clarified. So that'll be another project that will have a timeline for you as well. And what we've established is Shari is the main contact for that project, for both projects as we're working through the codification and then the updates. And so kind of working through those things to get on top of that.
Does everybody know what we're talking about when we say codification is you want to just kind of.
Yeah, so the municipal code, again, it's required that we are continually looking at our municipal code to make sure that it is in compliance from federal and state, and as far as the legalities of, what has to be in your codes. The next step would be making sure that we don't have any inconsistency or codes that are not meshing well together. For example, if you have one code that talks about parking at the hydrant and 5 feet from the hydrant, you'll get a ticket, and you have another part in the codes that say 10 feet, then those don't work really well
Right.
together. So that's part of the whole codification. The other side of it is making sure that when we're amending ordinances or passing new ordinances, is that those are sent to be updated to bring into our code as well. So that most people know that when they look up our city code online, they're looking up, as far as ordinances that may pertain to, something that's going on, whether it be building, whether it be nuisance is a hot topic, with spring in the air. So,
This would all kind of encompass like signage as well,
mhm.
right? Making sure the
Yep.
signage all adds
Yep.
up together with what's.
And I wanted to ask too, if I'm not mistaken, the codifier that we're using is a state of Iowa codifier, is that correct?
Correct.
So they are going to be very familiar with the state code, so that is to our advantage, right?
Yes. Mhm.
I'm glad to hear there's going to be a timeline. I know that's been something that's been in process for a long time, so it'd be
Yes.
good to know where we are.
Yep. No.
Because the
Great.
last codifier we used was from Cincinnati, Ohio. That's,
Correct.
it'd be nice to have somebody,
And I think we feel confident about our compensation and again, just needed to get some better communication and, and formalize some misunderstandings, and I feel confident that we're there, so.
Good. Great to hear.
Along with that, we've had, I gave you some, some development information. We've had, I've been able to have some meetings, in addition to this. And then, Ken turned in, we had 2 prospects that we spoke to. One is submitted, they're moving forward with annexation with their project, so we'll have some more information on that. The other one we haven't heard, but we had a positive meeting with that individual, and I'm looking forward to, hopefully we get a response on that one too, so, okay.
Great.
Other than that, I don't know if you have any other questions. I mean, a lot of it is gonna come down to, I've talked about setting some committee meetings. Had a meeting with the mayor and mayor pro tem and went over some expectations and things like that, so. I don't know, unless you have any other questions.
Any questions about city clerk or city manager Geertz report? Got to switch my language.
It's all right.
Interim city clerk, Hoffert, do you have anything you want to add for reporting?
No, like Lee said, we've been really busy trying to get things worked out, and the meetings that we've been having have been going very well, so I look forward to being able to see what happens in the future. And then the other thing that I wanted to say is that we have been working internally as well on getting some things worked out. So that has also been to the benefit as well for us.
Good, great. We do have an item here, setting committee meeting dates. Did you want to set dates tonight for certain
Well,
committee meetings or?
I mean, I would like to, I didn't know, we do have Danny and we do have Craig on, they have reports in your packet, so I didn't know if you had questions with them. I know Craig, they had a large amount of, well, Craig can explain it with West Liberty Foods. We had some processing which resulted in some large amounts coming through the wastewater processing. Craig, did you want to touch base on the West Liberty food distribution or anything like that?
Yes, I can comment on it. We had a problem with fog, which is basically fats, oils and grease toward the middle of the month, and we had another issue later in the month. Their numbers were pretty high, but I contacted them. They did come down to the plant, and I think we've got that issue straightened out. But our numbers did go up substantially at the plant. But I think now we should have everything taken care of.
You have any concerns about that moving forward at all, or feel like it's in a good position?
Well, after I touched bases with West Liberty Foods, they came down, took photos, they did a few samples, and I think they've got everything in place now to correct the problem.
Was it in conjunction with any beef or pork rendering?
No, they're not doing that at this time, as far as I know.
Yeah, I just want to say, as Craig said, the plant, those folks were quick to respond and we're working well with Craig and everybody to get on top of things. So, I mean, I wanted to make sure we're saying that too.
Absolutely.
That we appreciate that they were good to work with and responded quickly and through that. So
Let me ask too, if this is going to be the result later on of any DNR issues?
Well, we did have a violation for basically going over on our ammonia, which is NH3. And that's about the only thing we violated, because basically when you get that much fat, oils and grease coming down, it takes a lot of oxygen out of your aeration basins. So in order to fix that problem, we had to run the aeration basins for 48 hours on high and didn't let them fluctuate like normally. Normally we run them off variable frequency drives, so they fluctuate, but after 2 days, run them on high, everything straightened out.
What is the implication of having a violation? I don't think we just don't know what that.
Oh, basically, they just make a note of it, and you have to call them when you know the violation has occurred. Then within 5 days, you have to give them a written report, and you have to tell them what your corrective actions are going to be, that type of thing.
Okay.
And within the next samplings, well, first week of April, we had that problem already fixed. So I told them we had it turned around pretty fast. I can almost tell you by looking at clarifiers, once it clears up, I know we're on the right track again. So it's not a big deal, I don't think, as far as citywide, but if you continually have violations, then they're going to come down on you.
Yeah, we could potentially get them fined. Taking the fine that significant.
Yeah, in the past, when we have been fined, it was from the US EPA, not from the DNR. And generally not for anything that happened at the wastewater treatment plant, usually something out in the collection system. And it's normally documentation. So what Craig just told you, if you go through all the right documentation stages, the DNR is going to be 100% good. Sometimes EPA can be a little more critical. They won't fine you for that, but they can try to make you do things at the plant that maybe you might not. With one violation, I don't see it ever happen.
Okay. Good, thank you. It's good to learn about that and be aware of it.
And then Danny's on, and Danny had, I know Danny communicated with me, he's scheduled, we had some hydrants that, or some water mains that we finally got the contractor scheduled in. I'd asked him to put that in his report. I don't know if you have any questions for Danny about that, but so he's working on getting those things and other than that, and then I would say for the committee meetings, just trying to be, I think what I'm gonna do, Mayor, is I'm gonna go through real quickly what committees I'm looking at needing to set. I'll send out calendar invites, and that just, out of respect for our time this evening, that's something I can follow up with.
Sure.
So I know that the task force has set April 26th, so they're gonna have at 6 p.m. they'll have a meeting. I'll need to coordinate with Ken on that. I will be sending invites for the employee policy committee. That's going to be some discussion to go over, just as we talked about, making sure job descriptions are updated, employee handbook, and wages and evaluation information. Utility committee, I'm looking at setting some marketing opportunities for, utility rebates. We also have an interconnect policy to review. And there's a couple other things I have on notes to discuss with them about.
Okay.
Public safety meeting for a committee to set. Again, just to review, getting the emergency prepared plan going for the city. And along with that, we had some requests for stop signs, some additional signage, and then a finance committee to review the budget and budget amendments. So I will reach out to those committees and we'll set the dates with those folks.
Great.
Okay.
That sounds good. Okay, anything else from council about reports? All right, we'll move on to item 6. Public hearing on proposed ordinance amendments for the Vices subdivision, DHS Development Inc. We will have this public hearing and then we can kind of discuss what this is about. But is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to open the public hearing. Any discussion? It's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes,
Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Motion carries 4-0 and the public hearing is open. Are there public comments in the room?
Mr. Mayor, we have Mr. Dumont here, who
Yes.
is, that is his organization that is doing the development. So I didn't know if you had any specific questions or anything you'd like to talk to him with on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's great meeting you.
Yeah, you know.
From here. And thank you for doing what you're doing in the city of West Liberty, Iowa.
Yeah, we're excited.
We're
Excited
very,
to be over
very glad you're here.
here. Yeah. So at the end of the day, there's no real change to the single family versus duplex numbers in the development. It really came down to some setback issues we were having. And as we talked through it with Ken and yeah, Dave, we figured out we could do single family under the R2 zoning and get the setbacks fixed. So we decided just to bring it back through the process.
Yeah.
And change something.
So that allows the lots to be a little bit smaller than originally planned.
Yeah, and really it's on the setbacks as well, not front yard and rear yard, but side yard setbacks. The rules are just a little bit different.
Right.
And first time in West Liberty, we kind of did it backwards when we zoned it the first time. So once we figured that out, but and then by covenants that we're putting on it, the lots, even though they're all R2, we'll have it controlled with the covenants we put on the property that those have to be single family lots.
Okay.
And frankly, they're sized, you couldn't put a duplex on it anyway. It wouldn't fit.
Okay. You can control that through a covenant, even though the zoning would allow for it. That way you.
Yeah, but if you look at the frontages on them, And you wouldn't be able to fit a duplex on there really.
So is this council all on board with that? If you look at the map, there's a map in your book that shows that red zone moving from R1 to R2. What are the other, I was gonna ask this question, what are the other technical differences between R1 and R2 in our code, just so council's aware?
Pretty much what Jason and Mr. Milan had explained, Jason had explained. I mean, it really does have to do with lot size setbacks. I mean, again, depending on the size or what they do design, they could put, you know, a 0 lot line, or they could put the condo, but again, he's communicating that part of their covenants are gonna maintain the single family, but because of the size of the lot. And I do know that, again, with this amendment, but also going forward, building inspector Terry Geertz and I are looking at the overall ordinance specific to these type of developments to see about updating pertaining, because there's a lot more building in that direction versus, yeah, so I mean, and again, just the way our code is set right now, it's a little, it's outdated compared to how developments had been doing and how they're, you know, doing some things now with development, so it does need some updating, but this is specific to what their project is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would note, just to be very clear, Ethan, that one of the lots that is in the rezoning will be a duplex clear down by the water retention.
Okay.
And the lot on the top that was already R2 got switched to single family. It's
Okay,
just the way it laid out.
Yeah.
So you ended up with the same amount of single families and the same amount of duplex lots. We just had to shuffle things around a little bit. And some of it had to do with the retention basin as well.
sure. Thanks for that clarification. I was looking at these plans with Brad Akers last week, and I love this sidewalk that goes down through to the park. That's just happy to see that kind of thinking, you know, where it's a real nice quality of life.
And back to what Lee was talking about. Just. In another community over by Iowa City, very similar situation, and we actually worked with them. To get what they, over there, it's called an R1B. Instead of an R1A, it's an R1B. And so now when we do development, you have some R1A, some R1B, and some R2. And then you don't run the risk of somebody putting a duplex on an R2. It's not confusing to the community.
Sure,
Yeah.
so it's a single family with
Different setbacks and
Yeah.
different square footage.
makes sense. Yeah. Well, that's good, and I hope you can communicate, you know, as City Hall is working on all those things, your experiences with the process here, so
Yeah,
we
no,
can
it's
learn
very
from
good. Yeah, the communication's good.
your experience. Good. Questions from council on this? Again, anybody in the room, public comments? Do we have anybody on Zoom? Public comments? Has City Hall heard anything? Public comments?
I have not received anything, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Close public hearing. Mr. Mayor, motion, close public hearing.
Second,
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Again, it's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz,
yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Motion carries and the public hearing is closed, and we're right along to 6B, which is the ordinance amending the zoning from R1 to R2 of the VIC subdivision. First reading. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve this ordinance. Any further discussion? I see the address list here of all the people who've been notified in the area. I don't obviously don't think there'd be any issues here, but any further discussion? If none, this is a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
The motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much for coming down. Appreciate it. Great to see that project moving. We'll move on to 7A. Proposed plans and a public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications and proposed form of contract for the well number 2 improvements, phase 1 project. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open public hearing.
Moved and seconded to open the public hearing. Any discussion? Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Motion carries 4-0 and the public hearing is open.
Mr. Mayor, I will share with you, I did bring over the plans from Vistra and Kim. They're there in front of Councilmember Martinez. So if anyone
Oh.
is in the public or you folks would like to take a look at that, I do know Clerk Hoffert had provided the electronic copy we had provided electronic copies for you to review.
You want to walk us through this?
This is phase 1 of a 2-phase project. This is basically taking the old well number 2 that you've always had in the powerhouse. And it's always kind of been a standby well that's not been used for at least 20 years. So now we've got it back to where we can use it. And this is putting a new pump, a new motor, a VFD onto it, and a new power source.
Now, when you say something like VFD,
Okay, it's interesting that you said VFD, variable frequency drive, so it makes it ramp up really slow.
Hmm.
And you can control how fast and slow it goes. Now, we might come out with an addendum because somebody told me just recently, like today, that the VFDs are on the same thing we had with transformers, that they're way out. And so they suggested us do a soft start instead of a VFD. Soft start is similar. You can't quite control it as much, but it slowly starts and then slowly ramps up to the full amount. Which I think that will work, but I need to talk to my electrical tomorrow. Because if we can do that, I think we can get close to this. I put a very fast construction period on this, because really the work on the well is not hard to do. They can do that in 2 weeks.
Hmm.
But this electrical piece has got me that I have to check on. So right now, we have a cost estimate on phase 1 of this project of about $437,000. That includes a 15% contingency. So we hope it bids a little lower than that, and you have some contingency. Then we come back with a second phase. And the second phase is basically more or less making its own room around the well inside the powerhouse. That's about a $50,000 phase. So this is the first of the 2. We wanted to get that one out bid first because we knew that there's some things in there. The VFD is probably gonna change to a soft start if I can get my way. I've got to talk to my electrical engineer tomorrow.
So phase 1, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify, phase 1 is cost is 400,
About $430,000.
and then phase 2 is 50,000.
Let me just make sure. I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. I'll tell you the exact number. Phase 2 is 55,000.
Okay. And that should be the total.
So those 2 together are the total, right? And like I told you before, I'm a little more nervous about schedule. The intent is to get this well up and usable so that the city can use this well as a production well. So now you'd have 3 wells. And you could basically alternate. You never need more than one at a time, but you'd use 1, 2, 3, and rotate back and forth. That's how they normally do it. West Liberty Foods has already asked to use one of the wells for like 2 months as their own well because they've got a big problem with one of their wells. City, when Dave was here in Hugland, pretty much said, we're not gonna let you do it until we at least get this new well up, because last summer you had troubles with one of your wells. And if you had troubles with a well when they were using one, there'd be a big problem. So we don't want that, so we wanted to get this other one up and running. They
Would
would
that be
like to do
typical?
that this fall. They would like to use it this fall because that's a low water usage period for you. But we need this to move, so gotta keep going on it.
would it be typical for a municipality to have that many wells? I mean, like the ratio of how much water we need versus how much production we have, are we in sort of a typical range or?
You're in a pretty typical range right now. 2 wells, you have 2 wells. If they were both fairly new wells, you'd be pretty comfortable.
Hmm.
But since they're kind of both old wells, there's chances you're gonna have to do something. And even when we did this, we realized probably in 15 years, you're probably gonna have to do something. But this is a $500,000 project. If you were to do a new Jordan well, you're talking a couple of $1 million. Probably. So this was probably what we thought of as a pretty good period for now.
And I think you said you thought the lifespan of it after this would be 20 years, 25 years, was it?
But this well, probably about 15 years,
Oh, 15 years.
15 to maybe 20 if you
Okay.
get lucky. Yep. And
Okay.
our intent too was if something big happened at West Liberty Foods and they moved, there might be some wells very close that you could take. So there's all kinds of things that made this maybe a very wise move to just use this well, 15 years.
Public comments in the room? Any public comments from City Hall?
No, Mr. Renner, we not received any.
Anybody on Zoom? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion. Second.
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? A roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Motion carries 4-0. Public hearing is closed. We'll move on to the resolution to approve plans, specifications, cost estimates, and form of contract for well number 2, phase 1. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve this resolution. Any further discussion? Anything else to add? We good to go? A roll call vote.
Yeah.
Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Motion carries 4-0. And the resolution is approved. Great, we'll move on to another public hearing to adopt the annual budget for fiscal year 23-24. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to open this public hearing. Any discussion? It's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Public hearing is open. City Clerk Geertz, would you
Yes.
want to just walk us through what we're doing here quick?
So what you're doing here is you are going to be approving the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget as presented. So this was presented to you during the work session. There has been no changes to that budget that was presented. Attached to the resolution, we have the public hearing notice that consolidates all the funds. But you also have received the entire budget packet that's submitted to the Department of Management.
Excellent. Anybody in the room with a public comment?
I just would say that I just want to recognize, we did have still some questions from the fire and EMS. They had some questions with regards to budgeting. And I have communicated that we will establish a separate meeting to go through those questions. Along with this is why I'm talking to have the finance committee meet, because we do know that based on timing and when needing to get this submitted, that we're gonna have some amendments too. So we'll go through those. And that is all. I didn't have any other public inquiries other than just from the department.
Right, okay. Yeah, it'd be great to, I think for the whole council to hear kind of how that's resolved, because there were questions from the budget meeting on those items.
Absolutely.
Council, any public comments you guys have heard, you want to address? No. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? A roll call vote. I'm gonna go the other way this time. Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember McFerren.
Yes.
Motion carries. Public hearing is closed. We'll move on to the resolution adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve this resolution. Any further discussion? A roll call vote. Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah.
Councilmember McFerren.
Yes.
Resolution passes. 4-0. Vendor voucher claims list number 1 in the amount of $556,874.89. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the vendor voucher claims list number 1. Any questions?
Yeah,
Discussion?
the only question I had was after hours messaging.
Yeah, I have that one too.
For Centerville,
Yeah.
so that's gonna be our emergency line
Oh, okay.
for when the office is closed, so if outages are. Need to be addressed.
Okay.
Yeah, I used them a couple of times when that power went out, just to make sure that the authorities know that the power is out in a certain neighborhood. You can call the after hour line and you actually get somebody that can contact the authorities for that.
Works as the emergency utility dispatch.
Yeah.
So that's a third-party service we pay that's on 24/7 or after hours, and then they relay that to,
So historically had originally was housed with Muscom.
oh,
And so we had a separate after hours number and it went to Muscom and then they dispatched. But at the time, there was a new director that no longer wanted to dispatch those utility emergencies. So then we contracted with a third party to do the after hours. Just in all fairness, though, I know Chris Jasper, the director, has communicated that they would consider taking another look at that, but again, it's not really terribly expensive and it works really well and they're very thorough, so.
Is that monthly expense or?
Mhm, yeah.
great. Any other questions?
Our reimbursement for mileage, I'm assuming that's for Nikki,
Yes.
seems higher. What was,
Yep.
all the spring, of course, is a
Yep.
large time, but
Yep, and
Yeah.
so we have with his education agreement, he is provided mileage. And that cost will go into his agreement, so based on his years of service with that educational agreement. But that was his entire. That information had not been communicated and followed up with him, and so we're playing catch up on his mileage, so.
I was just
Yeah.
wondering what he's up to. It's a high number, so.
Yep.
It was up. to
And
something.
the IRS rate is a little bit higher than it's, 65 cents, so.
Very good.
Good, other questions? Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve vendor voucher claims list number 1. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 4-0. Vendor voucher claims list number 2 in the amount of $120. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second,
Take your pick over here, I guess. Motion moved and seconded to approve vendor voucher claims list number 2. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no.
I abstain.
Motion carries 3-0 with 1 abstention. Public comments and correspondence. We will open up the room again. Is there anyone here with public comments or correspondence? Is there anybody on Zoom? Council members. Councilmember Schiltz.
I have nothing.
And nothing.
Yeah.
I just want to say,
Martinez.
we had a Saturday, me and Dana had a good outcome to a meeting, or not a meeting, the class that we took.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was really good. I think there's a lot of information there, and I think we did some strategy talking, and there's a lot of things coming from that for our council as well.
Good. You're talking about the emergency management.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, and all
Training.
it was the first phase and then we'll have 2 other webinar. And again, I thank Councilmember Dominguez and Councilmember Martinez for coming out and it was a lot of information and it also was a great opportunity to connect with some other communities and speak to them about things. And so, I mean, we're not the only ones out there that's, working through this process. And, so I think we're ready to rock and roll on that.
It's a big project.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of things that go into it.
Yeah.
That I didn't
Yes.
realize.
They were very, very thorough about the FEMA and working with FEMA and,
Yeah.
good
Good to
stuff.
hear. Great. I'm glad you're taking the time to do that work. It's big. I know it's a big project. Anything from you, from City Hall?
Other than
Comments?
you, just some things that we talked about. I just wanted to also follow up with Councilmember Schiltz. I finally was able to connect with Ms. Jensen, and so
Okay.
we had a really good conversation, and so I was able to finalize that. I haven't heard anything more back on any other pieces. There are a couple more questions on nuisance, but we were able to resolve those, and I don't have anything else other than that.
Interim clerk, Hoffert.
No, I do not have anything, but I did want to remind council that I will be out of the office Wednesday through Friday this week for training. So if you guys need me, just go ahead and email me and I will get back to you in between
Okay.
classes.
Great. I had two items I wanted to ask about with public comments. One is about open burning. It seems like it happens every year. Get your open burning window
Mhm.
and then immediately there's a fire ban.
Mhm. Or
So-
there's rain.
So, or it's raining.
Mhm.
So. I think we should, address that. I don't know if council wants to. Extend the open burning. We wouldn't do it tonight, I guess, but maybe put that on the agenda for next time to reopen a time for open burning, or however you
I
would
think in
recommend doing
the
that.
past, we had extended the open burning,
Mhm.
you know, I think that's been pretty typical in
Yeah.
the past.
Do we control our own open burning times or is that like a county thing?
We control our own open burning times by ordinance, by code. However, though, we do so for example, if the county has a burn ban,
Right.
then we follow that.
Gotta respect that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it typical? I was gonna ask is that something that's always in code, city code, that council has to change the dates of open burning? I feel like that's something that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is,
Yeah. It
is
is,
it always done that way?
yes.
I guess I feel like that's something that
It was
Your
adopted
city
about
manager could
20
decide.
years ago,
Yeah,
a long time ago.
it just makes it hard to move if it needs
Because
to
it's an
shift, you know,
enforced
so.
code, so if you're not, because it would be I think a civil infraction, or it can be. So if you're
Sure.
burning outside of it, that's how come it would be in your municipal code.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Would that be reasonable? Would you want to see that on an agenda to?
I can't think of any
Shift the
negatives
date.
for
To revise it?
pushing it.
I think we could
That's
just
fine.
get a consensus on it. If you give us a consensus, I think that would be, we wouldn't have to bring it back to council. I think we
Okay.
would be okay if we just have a consensus. And it sounds to me like we do, that we can go ahead and extend it additional 2 weeks here in April from the. You want to extend it 2 weeks? I guess I need to know what's your consensus? Do
I
you want
think
a
in the
week?
Past, we've done 2 weeks.
I think so.
I think 2 weeks. would be good.
Extended 2 weeks.
So I hear a consensus for 2 more weeks.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Excellent.
We'll get that posted. And we'll want to also make sure we alert the fire chief, so then they're aware, just in case if we would have any issues with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I did want to ask one other thing, because somebody brought this up a couple times with me and wanted to follow up with me today. So I just want to ask about it. There's a structure along the Heritage Trail that they were concerned about safety. I think you were looking at that.
We did look at that,
Structure,
and
okay.
that structure that is not owned by the city. It's a private structure, and we, I know we are going to send a letter to the
Okay,
organization that's along the Heritage. However, though, we do want to reach out and just have a conversation with the Heritage along with that, because they're a nonprofit organization. So, we will be doing that as well, but.
it's in process then, in other words,
Mhm.
to be looked at.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think there was some confusion, maybe thinking that it was city property.
Oh, sure.
And so we wanted to clarify that, but then we also know it's a nonprofit organization that manages the Heritage Trail, so we want to, yeah, so
Yeah.
we just want to
Yeah, the trail is not.
have a one-on-one education about it, yeah.
I got a letter from Terry Geertz myself the other day. About some garage doors that someone had run into, they're getting fixed. Okay. Did we cover all the public comments? We're on to new business. Discussion and appropriate action for the Children's Festival on 9/16/2023, an event request. Is there a motion to approve this request?
Motion.
Moved and seconded to approve the request. Would you like to share anything with us about that, or?
Thank you. It's been a delightful, quarter century of doing this festival, so we're happy to continue doing it. I thought last year went really well, so we'll keep going. That's all.
Is this-
Anything different for this year?
It's gonna look a lot like it did last year, which was a little different from previous years when we used to be on Spencer and then we would have moved it to Calhoun last year, which I thought worked out a lot better as far as, the transition goes at 3 o'clock when we close the children's festival and move into Fiesta Latina. I thought the transition was a lot smoother for having a little extra space over there. It also left a lot more room for the bubbles, which was a pretty big deal.
That was a big deal.
Bubbles, yeah.
And the fire truck with the operational water hose.
Was really wonderful, yeah. Very grateful for the fire hose that washed away the bubbles.
Yeah.
Um,
I would just like to, again, Stephanie, they've done a wonderful job, in managing the event and, always bring, all of them bring, a lot of fun and, yeah, we've been doing this.
Yeah, this year will be a little smaller than last year because we don't also have the regional puppetry festival going on for the surrounding several days, so that's
okay.
good for me. I'll be a lot less stressed out. A lot less tired, so looking forward to that.
I wanted to recognize their request of itemized. What items that they requested. I know that. Garbage cans, barricades, electrical, utilization isn't a problem. Park isn't a problem. But my question is, what about the porta potties?
That's usually a problem.
Yeah.
We keep acting and crossing our fingers.
Yeah, the only one we provider at Rendezvous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at one point we were able to get one drug over from another park. Often we just wind up having to pay for additional ones, which, isn't always exactly in the budget. We do it anyway because there's so many little people and they need restrooms immediately. So when they gotta go, they really gotta go. So we want them to be everywhere and, conveniently located, but also like not in the middle of everything being a big eyesore. So I think last year we had them behind Rendezvous Park and also down on the corner.
Yep.
Behind the building with Shanghai.
And just to answer, so we do not move them anymore because we are contracted. So that does not allow us to move the Kaibos anywhere. So, but again, that would be at city's discretion. If you want to have us, organize a couple additional porta potties, then we don't. Again, you'll set a presence because if we do for one, then it's gonna be an expectation.
And everybody's gonna want it.
And they understand, they've been understandable about that. But we do provide, whatever's at Rendezvous Park, we make sure it's maintained and it's there. So that's how come we just don't do anything in addition to that.
Typically, we haven't provided additional porta potties.
No,
for
but
the
we
event.
keep asking and crossing our fingers.
Right. What about the 24 garbage cans? Is that,
That's pretty typical of what we
Yeah.
usually need. Any less than that and it gets pretty messy.
Yep.
And that's
Frankly,
something
the
the city
24
has
have one
provided.
street lane.
Yep, the street, so Adam, he manages and, yeah, they've got a system down.
They bring a big truckload with trash cans.
now, one final request, it says on the bottom, your joyful presence, which means, council, if you approve this, not only are you obligated to go, but you're obligated to do so joyfully.
I will be taking attendance. Measuring your smile. I thought we were gonna be there anyway. I know Ashley's bringing me musicians and stuff. It just happened. It's like, thank you for the mariachi band that you're gonna let me.
All right, any other discussion? And I think, do we need to clarify that the city will not be providing porta potties? We do that here in this,
I think if you wanna, if if you would like to proceed with approval on it, then just allow Stephanie and I to work through the restroom issue. We can, the other option we can see is who we contract with. We could ask them if they can set what we already have additionally contracted. We could work with them and see if for that, even if they could move a couple more. I wouldn't say, you know, from our budget purpose, yeah, because we're probably gonna end up having about 75 of them at the end of July, so, you know, it's a couple more, right? So,
So we'll approve it and let you guys work out those
Yeah.
details with the understanding that city won't be hiring more for the event.
correct,
Is that fair?
we'll just work on managing with what we have.
Sounds good. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye.
Right.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 4-0. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you. Yeah.
A resolution to consider approval of the ambulance department staff hire and wages. You can see here a new part-time paramedic. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Moved and seconded to approve this resolution. City Manager Geertz, is there anything you need to mention about this? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's good to see they found some more hire.
Yeah,
Well,
I think that's good. It's another part-time person just to help, again, alleviate staffing and.
Yeah.
I know they're not scheduled for a lot of hours, but the hours that they are is it'll definitely help.
It's not
fill
always
in
an
the gap.
easy role to fill, so it's good to see that we've had some recently
Yeah.
come in. That's excellent.
And I know the EMS director, again, she was part of the recruitment for this employee, so that's a good thing.
Excellent. Any further discussion about this resolution? Questions from council? Okay, it is, we have a motion and a second. It's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Resolution passes 4-0. A resolution to set the schedule and approve the plans and specifications and estimate of costs for improvements to the powerhouse for well number 2, phase 2. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Moved and seconded to approve this resolution. Do we have a walkthrough on this one? I think we know what we're talking about here, but
I think this is one we already kind of discussed on what phase 2 is, improvements to the powerhouse. We talked about the budget being at $55,550, and that included a 10% contingency on that one, not as big as the other one. We don't see there's as much risk on this one. We plan to, if it gets approved tonight, then we'd send it to the index in the Muscatine Journal tomorrow for a public hearing on May 2nd. And then bids get taken on May 11th. And we'll have it constructed in the June to August timeframe. We don't see any issues with that timeframe. We don't see any problems. Like we said, we have a little issue on the well on potentially a piece of equipment. We don't see anything on this one as an issue.
you mentioned something earlier about West 30 Foods. If they have stated it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when they build a new plant. How many wells do they have? 3. They have 3 wells on their property there.
2 of them are Jordan. Jordans are the big expensive ones. They might have 3 Jordans, I'm not even sure. I know they have 2 for sure.
That would almost be an unnecessary overkill then for it. I mean, if those were to be something that
2 of them might be,
City.
one certainly might not, because. Let's be honest, I've heard about them moving for a long time. Even if they decide to go, I suspect it would be a phased move
sure,
wherever they go to. And they'd be using those wells for a long time, and they did have the idea of where they move. Potentially pumping to their new site. My best guess is they'll find that expensive and decide to drill their own wells. Don't know for sure.
We don't know yet.
That's my best guess.
Just a question.
I understand the idea that, hey, we've got these wells. And $2 million is a lot of money for a new well like this. But then you start saying pumping for that long, that far.
They might as well just upgrade our infrastructure while they're at it.
Okay, that was a little bit of an aside, but we have a motion and a second on this resolution to approve the powerhouse for well number 2, phase 2. Any further discussion? It's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yeah.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I received a message from the Heritage Foundation. They wanted to speak. But they were having troubles logging in to speak. I don't know if you would allow them to respond to your question, or do you want them to attend the meeting next time and address your question?
Are they online right now? I mean, probably best if they just follow up the city hall, but if they're online.
I think he is online. He just.
Yeah, we're online.
Oh. I'll allow it.
Oh, very good. I apologize. I couldn't get in. This is Clifford McFerren from the Heritage Foundation. We're aware of the signal house on the trail that was exposed after the trees were taken out. It is leaning a little bit. It's stable at this point, but we're looking to move it down further into the campus. Been working and also talking with the school's contractor and Troy about maybe if they've got equipment that could pick it up and move it for us, that would be great. If not, we're gonna try to figure out how to move it down the trail further. So there is a plan to take care of that.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's perfect. That's good to know. Is that a historic?
Yes,
building?
actually, it's ugly, but it is historic back to the railroad. It's,
Okay.
way back in the day.
Mr. McFerrin, please don't hesitate to reach out to the city, and if we can help out in any way, I would volunteer staff to do that.
Very good. Thank you. I apologize for the breach of etiquette. I was trying to get to the public comment, but I couldn't get my microphone to work.
No, I appreciate the update. That's good to know. Yeah, thank you. Super. When you said you received the message, that I didn't realize it was gonna be Mr. McFerrin.
I looked over and I'm like, what's here?
Yes.
That's the wrong scene.
Wrong fee.
Excellent. We resolved that right here. Item 11D. Resolution to consider approval of Naughty Circle Drive, Gibson Street, Division Street, Engineering Services Contract. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the resolution. Who's gonna walk us through this one? Is that down? Yes, okay.
So this is a project that
We're
was.
glad you're here tonight.
I do, I have a few things. This is a project that was looked at in 2021. Can't remember her name, Elizabeth Hanson was here. She had us do a streets assessment. This was a pretty high priority streets that needed major repair. So what we did is we put together a cost estimate in 2021. And that cost estimate was, oops, you know.
I think they have it in front
We
of
do
them.
have that.
Okay, so you know,
Yeah, we do.
and
251,000.
about 251,000 and especially Gibson Street was in really bad condition. The curbs were bad, the sidewalks were bad. So this project is to completely replace the concrete on Gibson and the concrete road, the curb and gutter and the sidewalks. And then you go to the next road over is Division Street. That's an asphalt road. So it was to replace curbs, put on new asphalt and do sidewalk on that one.
Okay, so help us understand the exact area. It's the entirety of Gibson and Naughty Circle Drive and Division,
Correct.
the entirety of it. Okay.
Yes.
Because we had done that basically in like a quadrant type, and that. When we were working through the capital improvement plan, street superintendent Reinhardt was asked, of all these streets, which ones would you prioritize and move to the top? And again, we've heard from the community that, Naughty Circle Drive is certainly deteriorated and,
Okay, yeah, great.
So our intent was, if we get that approved, to try to get that to be constructed in the fall also, which is very fast moving for us. but we can try to do it. I think we can get it surveyed and get a move on it. So that would be that's what that agreement says, that we'll do it.
And I think there's currently no sidewalks on Division, if I'm seeing this.
This part of Division, I believe, has sidewalk.
Does it? Okay.
It doesn't look like it in that picture,
Maybe I just can't
aerial.
see through the trees.
You gotta look to those trees closely and you might not, and to be straight up with you, it's been a long time since I've been over there. I didn't go over there this time. I did look at it on Google Earth and got down in there. and
Okay.
It does look like,
Maybe it is, yeah.
at least part of it has sidewalks. I don't know if they're continuous the whole way. It certainly looked like there was.
And remind me, Leo, I think we talked about if we're going to be, improving our roads, we're including sidewalks along in that project, so that we. with the
ADA,
curb and- yeah.
ADA accessible sidewalks.
Good. Excellent.
So another part of this project, we were not intending on getting any right of way, more or less staying in the existing city right of way. Probably be asking people for some, just some temporary easements to get on their property while we're building.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Hearing none, there's a motion and a second to approve the resolution. It's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you for your work, Mr. Foley. And we'll hear from you again, if you please, on the next resolution to approve a change order in the amount of $1,700 for the Rainbow Maxon project. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the resolution.
Okay, so this change order is the large culvert that like 11 foot high. And we had, in our drawings, we said here, cut it off here. And now you gotta extend it so many feet in order to put the trail on top of it. And when they got out there, it just looked like they needed to move back 10 more inches to cut it off, to get into a good spot where the concrete was right to cut it and all that. When they did that, then now they have to extend it another 15 inches on the other end to make it work right. And because it's an expensive culvert, they're charging us $1,700 for that 15 inches of extension. But it's a big culvert.
It's a very expensive per inch cost.
It's a very expensive cost per inch. But it is probably a legitimate cost that they're gonna have to bear because they get these. When you start looking at the steel and you extend the steel, and if you didn't look at pictures that I put on there, you'll see there's a lot of steel in there.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not.
When you're gonna
but
drive
it's
on
just
top of
surprising.
something with a trail and have trucks on it, they wanna make sure it's not going anywhere.
Especially because we do still have some agriculture that comes in and, yeah, so I mean, it,
So I agree, and I thought the same thing. That's an expensive cost for a small change, but
and these are typically not change, I mean, these are kind of expected change orders. Because until they get into, you don't know what you're gonna
we usually tell you to keep at least, 10% of the budget for change orders on a project like this. When you get to these kind of things, there's gonna be some underground type things that are gonna.
Any further discussion? on this change order?
One last thing, what we do, and we'll keep you appraised of it. We usually say, okay, we keep track of how much change order you have, and if we get close to that 10%, we're gonna be sending alarms up. Typically don't, fingers crossed, every time I open my mouth too much and say we don't, something will happen, but in general, we don't have to do that.
Okay.
So that'll be something, as you see the next change order come through, I'll have a log of change orders on there.
Okay.
Change order one or one.
Yeah, you track both the change, the fee estimates and change orders. So.
Great. Any further discussions? It's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schultz,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Resolution passes 4-0. An ordinance to amend Title III. The term transient merchant does not apply to vendors providing or selling food, beverages, or other merchandise in West Liberty in connection with the 2023 Ragbri event. First reading. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve this ordinance. City Manager Geertz, you want to just briefly walk us through what we're looking at?
So what you're really looking at is a temporary ordinance just to cover the specific event of RAGBRAI as a pass-through town. And this establishes, as you can see in the ordinance, it establishes the timeline. It sets forth where they're vending fees, costs. And a lot of the information is in compliance because of the food inspections. Again, this is a sample that's provided by the RAGBRAI organization to have in your community outside of any of your other regular vendor permit fees. And it also identifies, the streets where they can where they're able to establish vending.
So it's pretty much just exactly the same as in 2018 with
Yeah.
a little bit of changes to the fee.
Yeah. So, the one thing we did take out was the electric connection.
Yeah,
Because we even in previous, we didn't have the ability to provide electricity for those vendors, so it suggested that they provide their own generation. Mhm. Yeah, because we just don't have the ability to provide electrical connections as they're requesting, and most of the vendors that we've worked with in the past, they're traveling and they already have their own setup for those type of things.
sure.
I know the committee did, I do have some maps, they did finalize the route. And we did have a meeting with the RAGBRAI officials. That was last week. We went through the route, and so it will be coming down Highway 6. They're going to be turning south on Calhoun and make a little bit of a jog across Maxon and then continue down Calhoun and then into the downtown area. So
Okay.
they're still working. The committee's been doing a wonderful job. They're working through a lot of things. And then likewise, our public safety committee, our public safety staff have been working through some logistics too, as far as making sure they have access to get out of the community if they have a call. And so there's some things to be worked through on those yet, but it's moving along really well. So the bigger part of it is getting these vendor permits going in.
So down Calhoun to the downtown, and then where do they go out of town? from there?
So they're gonna go then east on 3rd and then to the 4-way, and then they'll go south on 70 outside of, then on to Muscatine.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just add there too, within that permit, it also regulates that you are not permitted to set up outside of the designated area. So for those individuals that set up outside of that, they are subject to a fine. Okay.
Excellent. So the plan here tonight is to do the first reading and then do the second reading immediately and wait the third reading.
Yeah.
It's a little bit,
Yes, it is.
One.
Yeah, and because again, this is it's what we would call a temporary ordinance. It's only specific to that.
it does seem funny to do it like that. doesn't it? Normally, the purpose for the readings would be to allow some time, but
Right.
is there a reason why, is there a reason we need to do that? Tonight, council, I guess the timeline is.
Your timeframe, you have individuals that have been waiting to file for their permits, and again, it's nothing,
It's
I
not
would say
controversial.
major controversial, and
No, we just want to.
yeah, I just want to assure you that you don't have to. It's, we
Well,
can take it to a second meeting, so so.
And that's
Excellent.
what typical cities are doing right now. We did go out and look at it, because it is a temporary ordinance. It's, for a regular one, you wouldn't do something like this, but it's a 1-day
Right.
ordinance that goes into effect, so.
Makes sense. Excellent. Any other questions from council?
Yeah.
All right, we'll have a roll call vote. We have a motion and a second for this ordinance, the first reading. I'm gonna go backwards again. Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember McFerren.
Yes.
When I say backwards, it's just the way it's written on my sheet. That's what I mean. The motion carries 4-0. And we'll do it again with item G, the same ordinance, the second reading. Is there a motion
I
to
have a
approve?
motion to.
Okay. Moved to approve. Is there a second? Moved and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
The motion carries 4-0. We didn't say anything about waiving the third reading.
Reading right now.
Do we do that again?
I would recommend. We do it again. We'll just.
You want to just a motion to
Well,
approve
hold
the
on,
ordinance?
hold on. Let me, you have a new interim city clerk here, so I think she should be the one that. makes the call.
So I am okay with you guys going ahead because it's written in here. If you guys just want to go ahead and make a motion to waive that final reading, I'm okay with that because we have the two motions to go ahead. I'm okay with you going
Yeah.
ahead and waiving that third motion if somebody makes a motion for that because it is written on your
I
agenda.
move to waive the third reading of ordinance 2023041804.
There's a motion.
I will second that.
There's a motion and a second to waive the third and final reading of this ordinance. Any discussion? A roll call vote. Councilmember Martinez,
Yeah.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember McFerrin.
Yeah.
Motion passes 4-0. Lastly, we will set the date for a public hearing for a budget amendment for this fiscal year 2022-2023 on May 16th at 7:30 PM to a regular city council meeting. Is there a motion to set this date?
Motion.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion?
So we will be working with the finance committee and we'll take about another week or so here to put the budget amendment together. And then I'll set a meeting with the finance committee and go over what those budget amendments are for. So then we can set the public, we'll have the public hearing and get it passed. Hopefully get it passed.
Excellent. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. That can be a consent vote, right? Am I right?
Mhm.
Okay. And lastly, we get to item 12.
I have a motion, Mr. Mayor, to adjourn the meeting.
There's a motion to adjourn.
I missed it last time.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.